So it's all yours.
All right. Good morning. It's good morning still. Welcome to another one of our WEF-wise meetings. Let me share my screen. Last week we got caught up talking about a lot of GLWA's activities. I kind of went through the building of the GLWA energy database and some of the activities we're doing here with reporting out. I did have a couple more slides that I'm only going to take a couple minutes on that I'll wrap up the last presentation and then move that into turning the program, which I've documented a little bit, and Mike and I have been working on turning that into our goals for the energy program, which with the intent of moving that towards the business processes. And then David's going to be sharing his energy management work at Metropolitan Council of Environmental Services. And then we'll wrap up and discuss next steps. So just finishing up from before, I did want to bring up one of the things we've been active with is rebates. Energy efficiency program. So here we've had the opportunity. This some metrics around it. We really weren't doing a lot of rebating in this 2016 to 2019 period. So we were only getting a one or two or a year. This in 2021, DTE, because of COVID and everything, allowed us to go back to past work. So that's something we've really taken advantage of. And I guess I just want to make it aware, since we do have other utilities on the line, if they're not working on rebates, there is opportunity there. Most of it is in lighting. And what we've found is a lot of our facilities have been doing lighting upgrades as part of maintenance. So every facility, we have 5 treatment plants and then the booster stations. Everyone's not aware of the rebating possibilities there. So just awareness, working with people, but longer term, I think this is a good place for a business process, because working with the engineering group to make sure that rebating is in the project plan. Working with the maintenance, so that there's processes in place to capture those rebates. This year we had, this number, we're over $100,000 in rebates. Let's see, and then power quality events is something we've been reporting on too, with the metering software and meters that we discussed the installations they have, reporting for these types of events: over voltage, under voltage, transient, sags, and swells. So with our new software, we've been able to start capturing, and with the addition of metering. So you see these purple blocks only started in July. That's when we put meters in place. So as the program comes together and we have more facilities meters, we're looking for a power quality engineer just to kind of sift through this data. I mean, in August, we had over 900 events. So to see if there's anything going on that is presenting risk to our systems. So this is, kind of where I started. I think maybe in the first meeting, I brought this up, and this was something that I had developed to just kind of capture the activities around what the GLWA energy program was. But Mike and Cello kind of gave me some good guidance that, this is a summary of initiatives and activities, but it's not really, it's just task based. It's not really linked to any particular goals. So with Mike's assistance, I started building a goal tree for our energy program, and that started with an organizational level goal, and then the energy management goals that support those organization goals, and working through the sub goals to achieve those higher level goals, and then identifying metrics and KPIs to measure our success. And then the next step will be, we haven't done yet, is what business services and processes are these goals and the KPIs supporting. So I started with, as an organizational, reliable water and wastewater service to our customers with responsible energy usage. is maintained for the organization. So that was the overarching top goal. And under that, I identified 3 sub goals: energy costs, as targets that they're being met, that they're being tracked, reliable service to our customer, and energy efficiency long term is being improved. And below that, we had the supporting goals, a few supporting goals underneath that, and then we had all these KPIs. So I'll take a look at the reliable service portion. And I don't know if this, at every utility, this would necessarily be part of the energy management program or not. This is, but at GLWA, we're looking at the service side too. So not just, I think typically a lot of times the energy management will be where the energy is being used, if it's efficient, and if it's and cost effective. But we're also looking at, are we having interruptions? That's the whole power quality chart that I showed a minute ago. And the metering initiative isn't just for energy usage, but when we do an email to our customers when we have a pump trip. So our customers are, we're pretty transparent. They know that how many there. I don't think anyone's keeping metrics on it, but they could, and they could come back and say, you guys have a problem, or they know when they have a boil water, things of that nature. So pump, starting at the bottom, we want to have pump trips being investigated and prevented. Power quality events are reduced. So, as we, and the KPIs for that would be the number of power quality events, like I just showed you, the type of events, the number of internal and external events, and the number of interactions with our utility to, if it's an external event, are we interacting with them so they can mitigate these events, and with the goal of mitigating interruption events. And what that means is like the pump trips, anything that would prevent the water or wastewater service. So those all, bubble up to the reliable service to our customers. And then on the other side, metering has been, a major initiative. So I have a goal of the software upgrade and the meters being installed. And these metrics were just around how many of our facilities. So 8 out of 19 at booster stations, 3 out of 9 at sewer lifts, all 9 CSOs, 3 out of 5 water treatment. As we have these meters installed, PME software upgraded, we achieve, reliable power quality metering at all of our facilities. And we have the metrics around that, and all that bubbles up to the service to our customer, which at our executive level, that's going to be really what they're going to be more interested in, and less so of the how many meters we have, but what's the impact to our service for our customers.
Eric, George has his hand up.
Okay, George, go ahead.
Yeah, Eric, I was just wondering, sorry, I missed the last call, so you might have gone through this last time, but I'm just curious, what was the process you went through to develop all of these awesome trees?
We haven't really talked about the trees in the previous meeting. The previous meeting, we really talked about our data gathering and reporting. The development of the trees was really just an effort of mine with Mike's guidance. Mike brought up a gold tree, and I honestly didn't even know what that was. So I did a little research and reading up about gold trees, and from there I started to put it together. And Mike's been a great resource to help me define things a little better and get some of the language right, and ultimately get the KPIs aligned with the goals, and from there we'll align business processes with the KPIs.
Okay, I guess so. What I had assumed, I guess, was, so this wasn't some kind of whatever visioning session where like upper management was sitting around a table and everybody kind of developed these together. This is coming out of your cranium.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's
just
fun.
as just a quick side note, this goal-directed task analysis that we did with Eric here was something that we reported on in the UAIM final report. So if you want to go look in those documents, or we can give you a link, that was one of the outcomes of the UAIM.
Yeah,
project.
I guess the bottom line is I'm wondering whether anybody else in the organization is aware that these are the organizational goals, or because that's kind of one of my challenges is it's kind of not even on the radar. So I've got similar kind of, it's not as nice as Eric's trees, but it's like, these are all the things we could and should be doing, but it's kind of getting the buy-in from above for everybody to agree that those are kind of what we're working towards. So anyway, okay, thanks.
Eric, if I could respond to a bit of this here. George, your specific questions, first thing, they're awesome, and I'm just so glad that you're here and engaging, because I've used your quest as an example to guide my thinking on how energy needs to be addressed at a utility. So Eric is doing this awesome job with process because he's right there, boots on the ground. He's actually the one that's helping the local contractors get these linked up to our data, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, because I know your quest of trying to get this, people to pay attention to it, just like what you're asking. Does the upper management even give a shit about these things? Oh my gosh. And honest to gosh, I think about that all the time. Just so it is critical to get that planning side right along with the day-to-day energy management side. And to give you a sense for how important I think that is, this morning I had a fairly detailed call with Glenn Diger, where we're funding a project with him at the University of Michigan, looking on decision analysis and looking at exactly this, from the small scale nuts and bolts all the way up to the big picture. So we were talking about scenario planning, sort of like what DC Water is doing with their microgrid, and potentially putting in a microgrid to enable better integration of renewable energy, more stable power supply. So there's that continuity, and as well as a significant reduction of power quality issues. And until someone realizes, oh my gosh, we can do something that'll address all of those drivers of renewable energy, greenhouse gas emissions, sustainability is one. Then you have the operator that's now says, well, look, I need to start up this really filthy diesel generator because I don't care about greenhouse gas emissions, and I don't care about cost, because we have people that are out of water. And then, of course, you have the accountants over there saying, hey, you guys can be more efficient, but by being more efficient, you may be switching your pumps back and forth to, maintain that last little edge of efficiency, and therefore causing pressure transients. So George, this is I should say, maybe assume this to be a compliment, and assume it also to be a very thoughtful response to what your question is, because it is so freaking important. The big picture is, what Eric has been doing is just so awesome that the upper management is watching it and is in this, but they're sort of like, okay, just give us what should we be doing? And we haven't really had that. So Eric's efforts to even develop an energy database established a lightning rod now for like, hey, we have this issue. Hey, Eric, can you do this? So now he's busier than ever. And this is the next sort of thing. It's like, well, here's a way of assessing reliability. And they go, oh my God, you can do that too? Well, this is so great. Anyway, I'm going to take this away, but Eric, this is so totally awesome. Don't hire Eric though, but he has many sad I've.
So
Anyway.
I guess I'll open it up if anybody has any thoughts around, this goal tree. Does it align with, even from the higher level one? Do you feel like this aligns with the energy management going on at other utilities as far as, costs, service, efficiency? Josh, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, the only thing I was gonna add, because it's something that I think from at my utility, the players that are pushing for metering, sub-metering more is the group that does condition assessment, and the reason is because they can do predictive maintenance on pumps. So I just thought I don't know if that's a KPI or a goal or some kind of dotted line that's a co-benefit, but that seems to be a pretty big deal for our folks.
Yeah, and it sounds like you guys are probably a little more advanced than us. I think that would be something on our asset management radar, but we're not really at the point where we're doing a lot of that predictive maintenance at this point. But by having that in place, you're aligning yourself to be able to do that. Yep, but down the road.
I look at what you've done there, and I don't see how we're advanced, more advanced than you. But I won't give you that. But I do think there's pockets. It's like there's pockets of innovation, and our condition assessment team is just extremely innovative. But it's one team.
Yeah. Any other comments or thoughts before I turn it over to David on the gold tree? If not, we can, I know David has a presentation to share the activities there in St. Paul, and I also want to invite, other utilities to share with, what's going on with your energy management plan in upcoming meetings, so that we can start to see where there's some similarities, some commonalities between what's going on. I think we're all in a similar boat as far as kind of on islands, I guess going back to the question about upper management, and they're not very engaged with what's going on with our energy management, and it's not that they're not interested. I think we just have enough things going on for that level that it's on their radar that we're doing some. We have people working on it, but it's not something that they're too engaged with giving us direction.
Eric, just a quick comment, but the things that you're developing will really help communication, because when people see a map like this, it's a lot easier to connect the dots. If it's not just some theoretical thing and they don't really know what it means, and and stuff like that. But I think that this kind of thing is also valuable as a communication tool to upper management, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. I agree. So with that, David, are you ready to
Sure.
take over?
Let's see if I can make this work here. All right. So I'm David Ponder. I work at the Metropolitan Council in our Environmental Services Division. I've been at the council for about 6 going on 7 years. I came in to the council kind of as a general sustainability specialist. So I'm not a professional engineer by training or anything like that. So certainly my time spent at the council has been, I've learned a tremendous amount. It's one of the things I really enjoy about my job is learning all of this stuff. But it has meant that our growth and development has been maybe a little bit slower. We had an energy efficiency person in the seat that I occupy now. When I first got here, he retired, and then I kind of took over for his work about a year and a half, 2 years ago. For quite some time, we have at the Metropolitan Council been, had our eyes on energy savings. Go back 10 years, there was the old general manager said, let's reduce our energy consumption by 20% by 2020. And it was this top-down goal, and it spurred a lot of activity for a while, but then things sort of drifted, right? It was really unclear what we were doing and why we were doing it. So one of the things I was pushed for is, look, we need to come together and figure out what it is that we're doing. And is this a priority or is this not a priority for the organization? And if so, what is our path forward going to be? So about 18 months ago, right before the pandemic, we started doing interviews with our leadership team, trying to understand from their perspective what the issues were from where they sat, and essentially trying to build the case for bringing a group of folks together to kind of define what we call an energy management strategy. So here are some of the things that we heard from folks when we kind of did the initial discovery. You know, the work felt really ad hoc. People were doing energy efficiency and energy work, but it was opportunistic. It wasn't strategic. Folks felt like we didn't have clear insight on our performance, and you know, I think this has been brought up a couple of times. It's not just having the data, but it's having the data in such a way to inform decision making, and that was a gap for us. You know, we had a legacy of improvements, but yeah, you know, we've since 2008, we've sort of reduced total energy consumption, well, except for this year, by about 18%. So some, you know, some strides, but it was unclear where we were headed, like I mentioned. And then, you know, I think like a lot of organizations, we're very siloed in our approach. Capital did their thing, maintenance did their thing, operations did their thing, process engineering was doing their thing. And meanwhile, I'm trying to kind of grab from each of these different activity sets, you know, trying to pull it together, right? And so there was just, you know, a lack of shared understanding across the organization. And then the other thing that was acknowledged is we're just not doing a good job communicating, either with ourselves or externally to our customers, to our stakeholders, to our regulators, and that we needed to kind of have a better approach to that communication. You know, it was reactive, right? Oh, tell us what you're doing on energy. Oh, we throw some stuff together instead of having a proactive story to tell. So these are some of the reasons why we formed this energy management strategy team. This is just kind of a quick overview of kind of how, yeah, exactly. I was just reading Josh's comment. So this is kind of how we, you know, what our process has been along the way. So we spent actually a lot of time in this first phase of team formation and context setting, and that actually took us a lot longer than I anticipated it to. Some of that was pandemic related, but some of it was just getting everyone on the same page and understanding about what it was that we were trying to build and what the best practice was. So, you know, we kind of took a look at kind of where we've been as an organization. We went and we looked around at energy management best practice, both sort of in the wastewater sector and outside the wastewater sector. We did some context mapping, and by that, you sort of understanding what we have said we're supposed to be doing along the way. So, you know, we have different levels of policy statements, you know, all the way up from, so we're the Metropolitan Council is a regional agency. We provide regional wastewater service, but there are other operating divisions, and so sort of there's this master regional plan document called Thrive 2040 MSP. That's got a bunch of statements about energy and climate, and then we have a water resources policy plan, right? And that's sort of describing our system plan. And then we have a customer level of service, and we have a work instruction. So we have so there was, it took folks people wanted to kind of walk through all of those things. And one of the things that I took away from this is I'd been spending a lot of time thinking about this stuff already, right, leading up to the team formation. But it was really clear that not everyone else in the organization that we brought together on the team had spent that time thinking about these things. And that was a challenge for me because I was ready to go and do stuff, but we had to kind of slow down and let folks go through the process of learning this and getting their minds wrapped around things. So I don't want to spend too much time on this slide, but I just want to conclude that we're sort of at the end of this phase 2 and moving into sort of phase 3 at this point. And I'll kind of get into some of the details about sort of the outcomes that we've developed in this phase 2 process and later, but I just wanted to kind of show you that, it's a phased approach. It's taken a little bit more time than we thought it would, but I think we're finally making some traction in terms of sort of adopting a formal energy management strategy. Some of the other things that we did as a team, we did a SWOT analysis. That was actually a really interesting exercise. One of the things that was interesting about that is, and I'll talk about sort of what we call our focus areas. We did this we kind of tried to do the SWOT analysis for each focus area, right? So when we think about energy management, we think about efficiency and conservation, we think about renewable energy, we think about energy recovery, we think about tariffs and budget issues, and then we sort of think about these reliability, service quality issues as well. So we tried to do sort of a SWOT for each of those topic areas, and then this is sort of the distillation of all of those. One of the other things that we did that was really effective as a team is to take some time to think about how energy management relates to our core processes and our supporting processes, right? So this is something that, we just kind of threw together, but we wanted folks to sort of, and again, thinking about the way we do run our business, this was a new idea for people, right? They're like, what do you mean I have a process, right? I don't have a process, I just do my job, right? So it took folks a while kind of like within these core processes, even to describe their business processes. And because, folks felt like it was maybe a little ad hoc or what have you. But what we were finally able to do is for each one of these core processes across the center, kind of go through some steps, right? So this is a process efficiency summary. So sort of plan. I'm sorry. This is the asset management one. So we plan, we maintain, we manage, we improve, and we kind of do end of life work with asset management. So what are each of those steps involved? Sort of our current state, kind of how we currently think about energy management issues along the way, and then sort of what we think the possible future might look like with where we want to go. So that again took more time than I anticipated it to, but it really was enabled us to really start to get folks to see what was possible and to see how we can deepen our integration across the business. So that was nice. And then so kind of the core recommendation from the team, and we're just now bringing this forward to leadership. We had a meeting yesterday with our utility systems manager and our general manager. They were quite receptive and supportive of the work. We'll bring that forward next to what we call our strategy network, which is essentially our leadership team, and looking to bring forward a formalized energy management system. So informed by sort of industry best practice in energy management. So ISO 50001. We're not saying that we're going to follow ISO 50001 to the letter, but it gives us a framework, a structure to help us think about how to do this. And for me, it's about being structured and disciplined in how we measure, manage, and improve our energy performance. John was just talking about sort of emissions, cost, reliability. We talk about it in a slightly different way. The reasons why we do energy management is cost. It's like 12% of our operating budget. It's $18 million a year. It's a cost we can control and manage. That's really important for us. Our leading source of greenhouse gas emissions is our purchased electricity. So everything we can do to reduce energy purchases helps reduce and mitigate that contribution. And as we all know, at the end of the day, we're here to we are here to treat wastewater, right? Maybe you're there to provide clean drinking water, but we have a different core mission, and that is what the most important thing is for the business, right? That's why the business exists. But we need energy to be able to do that, right? And we have to have reliable and resilient service to be able to provide those core services. I already talked about our focus areas. I could go into detail on that if folks want to at some other point. I think that's a duplicate. I want to talk about this slide, and then I'm going to show another version of this slide. So, all of this stuff is generic, continuous improvement. Call it Plan, Do, Study, Act, PDCA, DMAIC, DMADVID, whatever you want to call it. It is really just basic continuous improvement. You need to make a plan. You need to implement the plan. You need to reflect on how successful you were or not in implementing the plan, and then you need to make an adjustment. But I think one of the things that's become clear to me as we've gone through this process is there's both a strategic set of work that goes into defining the system, and then there's some of the more tactical things. And so what we've really been able to accomplish so far are the things a little bit on the left, right, in terms of planning, and we're not quite yet there to sort of implementing this at a tactical level, but it's a dichotomy that I think is important to keep in mind, right? And we were just talking about this idea of leadership buy-in and support. For us, we were where I sit in the organization, we were not positioned to be able to be effective in what we wanted to do. So it was really important for us to, instead of just to dive in, to really take a minute, step back, and try and think about sort of energy management strategically, and bring a process forward that people will buy into. This is adapted from that ISO 50001 model. So this defining organizational context and leadership commitment, that's kind of all we've really actually truly kind of done so far in following the process model, but we've also though been able to define what it is that we're going to do, right? And that's been important. And so now that we say, okay, this is really what we're going to do, now we have the support moving ahead to actually go through and follow each of these other steps. I like this way of thinking about it. Another kind of piece that we talk about, or sort of what we think about as the components, and I don't know if components is the right word, but it's the best word I could think of at the time when I first made this slide deck. But there's, to be successful, to do this process I just described, there's some certain things we have to be able to do, right? We have to have a commitment from our leadership. We have to be able to integrate our processes, have a shared improvement plan. We've got to be singing from the same songbook, is the way I like to talk about it. We know that we have to have a strong performance measurement, and we know we have to have the support systems to kind of implement and sustain the system. So I'm going to talk a little bit next about kind of some of the details of the next steps are related to each of these components. The first one is just getting really clear about roles and responsibilities. And again, this is, from from my perspective, this was kind of the most important thing, right? Because it was really unclear what my job was at the organization. And so I wanted to know, hey, is my job to drive this or not drive this, right? Do you want me to just sit back and collect rebate checks, or do you want to have me help drive improvement? So getting clarity about my role as an energy manager has been really critical, but also everybody else understanding how they support the work as well, because it's not one person's job, right? There's no way one person can do all of this work, right? So leadership has a role to play. We're going to be forming an energy team, and I'll talk about that in a second. The energy managers are really as the hub of activity. And then, Cello, get to you just a sec. Facility teams, we have these facility level meetings where capital and operations and maintenance and process engineering all come together. One of the key things for us was we need to be engaging people at that facility level moving forward. And then everybody in the organization has a role. Cello, yeah.
Yeah, this is Scott, David. I would just.
Oh, I'm sorry, Scott.
A quick question, and then you need to get through your presentation because this is really good.
Yep.
But how does it make you feel if you look back at when you first started versus the kind of process that you're engaged in with all the levels and across your facilities and all of that with energy management? Do you see a big difference?
Well, I am hopeful and optimistic, but we still have to live this out, right? Yeah. So it's one thing to have this all on paper and in a nice looking slide deck. It's another thing to be able to live this out. I think moving ahead, one of the big challenges we'll have is a resource allocation. What we're laying out is fairly ambitious. And so I'm a little tentative about that. I'm a little anxious about what that might look like, but I am hopeful that that this is going to change the conversation, right? It's going to shift the conversation away from, no, there's nothing to see here. Don't worry about this. We've got this covered. We'll let you know if you need, when it comes time to do a rebate. To sort of having a more deliberate and intentional conversation about how we're doing energy management across the organization, right? So I'm hopeful, but this is the one thing I should also say is this sort of systems-based approach is new for us as an organization, right? And it is part of our general manager's kind of vision for the organization. So in that regard, I know that I have the support at the very highest level of the organization. It's just when we start to step down and through the kind of the next few levels, and are we going to get resistance and from there? But I think, and so we'll be one of the first sort of systems to kind of move ahead in this kind of new systems approach and organizing the way the business is run. So we have some first mover advantage in that maybe we are going to cut some slack if we make mistakes along the way or what have you. But I'm well aware that there's this change management part of this that we're going to have to cope with.
Yep.
So
good insights. There's some more hands that went up.
Yeah.
George, and then Josh. George? Oh, George put his hand down, so Josh, it's
sorry. No, sorry. I put my hand down and I didn't turn my mic on. Sorry.
Okay.
You're not going to get away with it that easily. David, that was fantastic. So you are following a very similar process to what I'm trying to kind of get moving here. So kind of following that ISO 50001 framework. So it's great to see that you've got that high level buy-in, and it'll be super interesting to see how that translates into getting buy-in from kind of the lower levels of the organization, which, as you said, you have to have their buy-in too in order to make this happen. You can't do it all by yourself. This is a whole philosophy thing. So this is going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. And I guess the only other thing I wanted to add is your your description of change management. I think to varying degrees, all of the other WISE groups are going to be kind of having varying degrees of this this challenge as well, which is, we have limited resources. How does the organization set its priorities and clearly articulate the priorities so that we, as the energy manager group, the energy management group, how do we understand how our initiative fits in with everything else the organization is doing? And it's, when we bring these things to upper management, it clearly is logical, and it hits a lot of the buttons with respect to climate action and cost management, but it's where the rubber hits the road is how does it, this is all measurable, and hopefully we can all show that we have metrics and we're reporting back up to the top how effective we're being because our metrics are improving. So this is really good. Thank you.
Yeah, I really see the future of our chartered energy team. So we've had this existing team to kind of define the strategy, but we're planning to do kind of an ongoing charter team is really the way to help us navigate, those relationships with the other parts of the organization, right? It's going to be key to have the right people on this steering team to be ambassadors back to these other respective parts of the organization. So we got to have not just the junior engineer from Capital on the team, but maybe somebody that's positioned a little bit differently in the organization. And, so just this is something that's on our mind, is making sure that we are assembling the right team moving forward to be able to help deal with some of that change management.
Josh?
Yeah, thanks. Hey, great presentation. Very, it's an honest kind of portrayal of your path and how you've gotten to where you are. And I'm really glad you're optimistic and moving this forward. My question is, do you understand, or have you reached a point where you are starting to get your head around costs? And then is there a budget for what you're doing?
It's a good question. And I'll pop over to this slide, and because I think it's related to this notion of providing and sustaining resources. We've been really careful so far not to put too much out there in terms of what we think this is going to cost. That's a tension, between, frankly, me and my manager, right? I would rather say, hey, look, what we really need are, 2 more FDEs to really pull this off. I think it comes down to kind of making sure that those sort of specific resource requests come with a more detailed implementation and action plan, and that we really understand what it's going to take. And we've started to build that out, but that'll be the first thing that the energy team does is sort of build out a detailed implementation plan and timeline. Frankly, I just think that folks haven't been able to digest what the actual effort is on this, right? And how much time and energy it'll take. So the frank answer is no, we've not put a cost to it yet.
Yeah, but it sounds like you're just not at the point in your process where that information gets filled in.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, what we've been trying to do is position ourselves in such a way that, let's first get everybody bought into what it is that we're doing. And then let's come back, see how far we get with what we have already, with realigning and reprioritizing existing resources, and then say, okay, if we, is that enough, right?
Yeah, and I suppose the other side to that is the benefit question. And then, that's where you make your argument that it's worth the cost, right? So you kind of have to do a pro forma on what it is you're getting. And not all of that is, not all of that's easy to monetize. Some of it's kind of, a tummy rub that you're, where you're going and how things are working. And
yeah, and I think one of the other things that's true, and we've talked a little bit about data collection and monitoring and things like that. Part of what is a gap for us is we don't quite yet know what additional monitoring or analysis that we will need because we just don't know what we have yet mapped out. The other thing I would say about resources is on a level, I'm actually pretty optimistic about it because we do have strong partnerships with our utilities. And so sort of this outside consulting support or this outside technical advice, I know that I can go to our utility partners and say, hey, we're planning, what we want to do is a soup to nuts energy audit of all of these facilities. We want to look at pumping systems. We want to look at compressed air systems. We want to look at HVAC and lighting. We want to look at steam systems. I know that I can go to them and get the resources that I need to bring in the consulting support to support me in all of this. So that's another thing to keep in mind about resources is that the utility is there to back us up on that. I just want to show one last slide real quickly, and that's kind of how we've been thinking and starting to think about setting targets. I mentioned at the outset that in the past, what we've done is top-down goals, right? Reduce energy consumption by 20% by, in 10 years or 50% in 15 years. I mean, and it just didn't make sense. It was not based on the facts on the ground, and it really turned people off, I think, to prior efforts around energy management because they're like, where, how, right? Instead of sort of taking the time to say, okay, let's just understand what we've got now and what the opportunity is, and then based on that understanding about what the kind of the technical opportunity, then let's start to build some bottom-up goals, right? And so when we're thinking about, this is our current thinking about performance reporting, we know that we're going to have different levels of reporting at across the organization. And then, in that strategy, leadership folks are going to be interested in one set of information, facility managers maybe a different one, operators a different one entirely. And then, but we are thinking that for most levels, there will be some aspect of reporting on cost, use, emissions. But I want to key in on this practice one because this is something that it was an assistant business unit manager brought to the team that was really key. You know, a lot of the times we're talking about lagging indicators, right? What was our energy consumption last month? What was our what's our cost to date? And Camila, who she's moved on to 3M now, but she used to work at Anheuser-Busch in Brazil. And one of the things that you know she brought to the team that really resonated with me is this idea of benchmarking practice. Like, have we implemented and do we have the systems in place? Are we doing the maintenance activities? Are we doing the you know, what are the best practice activities that are relevant to the facility, to the equipment, and are we actually doing those? Because we think this will be our key to getting to some sort of a leading indicator, right? And that this will help drive improvement, right? So if we're getting to implementing all of these good practices, then that will naturally lead to improvements in these other areas. So that was just one other tidbit that I wanted to make sure I shared with folks. So, you know,
keep going. This is valuable discussion, and you don't even have time to read all the nice comments that you're getting, but
yeah,
but maybe you should try to continue.
Yeah.
Right, Eric? It's up to you, Eric.
Yeah. You know, if you've got questions, you know, use the hand raise and we could talk about some stuff some more. One of the other things that I'm looking forward to as part of our process, and, you know, this is kind of building off the work that the team did in terms of our process mapping, is, look, we did some work to try and understand what those improvement opportunities are to our current processes. But what was unclear and what was not in our mandate was to actually revise our business processes, right? So we were able to think about those business processes and understand how we might improve them, but we were not charged with actually leading change to those business processes. And so one of the things that we're making sure that is clear about our mandate moving forward is the review of our opportunities, our existing processes, and making actual changes to them. So that was sort of, you know, we kind of got ahead of it was important for us to kind of do that process mapping and understand the relationship in the current state, future state, but we didn't quite have the charge to kind of follow on with those kind of future state ideas. So part of what we're making sure we carve out for ourselves as a team moving ahead is the space and sort of the green light to go ahead and look at those processes and make suggestions. And then finally, the last part on this is this last bullet point is we're trying to think about energy management as a system and in of itself as a process. So what is the documentation and controls that we need to have in place for our energy management system in and of itself, right? What are going to be our reporting requirements? You know, what are our data quality and data integrity and data collection, data management plans? Like, we really need to have a really what are our guidelines for how we do energy audits? Really need to have all of that also documented. So it's not just other people's processes that we're talking about, but it's our own processes and making sure that those are clearly documented and we're following through. So looks like somebody's got their hand up.
That would be me again, David. Yeah. You mentioned at the beginning that you just recently got the kind of the management buy-in for all of this. Is this presentation essentially how you did that?
We didn't show them all of this, right? But we did show, you know, sort of the second half of the slide deck. We didn't show the timeline, but yeah. And the way we kind of approach this is we started to sort of write a Word document or something like that to sort of say, okay, this is our vision for what the energy management program is going to look like. And what we really quickly realized is that was not going to get read. We were going to spend a lot of time, arguing over, text and things like that. And that really a PowerPoint slide deck that we can, because that's what people have their attention span is, decision makers. And so, yeah, this slide deck is what we brought forward essentially as our recommendations.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. This was really informative. Thank you very much.
Yeah, happy to share share it with everybody. I've already been learning a lot, listening to others in these calls. I think that this kind of information sharing across utilities is going to be really helpful for us. So I was just taking screenshot after screenshot from Eric's presentation. So.
Yeah, it will be the slide decks and the recordings will always be posted for everybody to see. And Eric, did we want to see if somebody wants to maybe volunteer to present next time?
Yeah, that's what I would like to see if we could get anybody another utility to step up. And I think David, is a little intimidating by having such a polished presentation, but we won't expect that from everybody else. So whatever you have, bring
slides
forward.
the slides existed before this. So
I see a new person on the call, and that's Diane McGahan.
Yes, hi. I'm one of the energy managers at WSSC Water.
Oh, awesome. So you work with Keith Tyson, who is also awesome.
Yes, and he's the one who introduced us. Myself and my coworker Rob Taylor are both energy managers, and we were just interested to hear what you guys were doing.
Yeah, I
very
twisted her arm
interesting.
to get on the call.
What's that, Keith?
I twisted her arm to get on the call.
Oh my God, that's
Oh,
awesome.
wasn't that hard?
What do you guys think of presenting? I can't pull in, or I don't see DC Water here, and you guys are, maybe even more awesome than DC Water since you're here and they're not here.
We like to think so.
I'll leave that up to Keith for himself, but I wouldn't be open to presenting at this point. But maybe Keith and James might have something in there that they've been working on.
We'll have to get back to you on that. So Diane's got all the keys to the castle, and we're here just to try to figure out how to make her job easier. So we'll have to defer for this moment. Maybe we can put together something in the next few meetings or something. I don't know.
Yeah, again, I'm not gonna commit to that at this point, but I find it interesting and would be interested to hearing more of what y'all are doing.
Great. So Josh or George, maybe you can drop an email to us later to Eric and let us know. And because we're going to be planning the next call to make sure there's substance in sharing. So if you don't mind, Eric, I'm going to turn off the recording. Did you have any parting messages before we stop?
No, I just thank you to David, and thanks for everybody participating. I think it's great to see the different activities going on, and we're here to learn from each other. So anybody that can contribute what you have going on at your utilities. I think we'll see a lot of similarities, but I think we'll see some interesting differences too.
Okay, thank you, Eric and David, and thanks everybody. We'll be sending out a note with the links and what the agenda is going to be next time, and have a great rest of your week. Take care.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks all.